Of course, one of the greatest events of this musical season are undoubtedly the concerts given in Romania by the famous Yehudi Menuhin and the Menuhin Festival Orchestra. And now I have the great pleasure and privilege to have our guest in front of our microphone. Well, first of all, Mr. Menuhin, I know that this is not your first visit to Romania.
No, my first visit to Romania was, I was 11 years old when I was in Sinaia with my great teacher, Stănescu. And since then I've been here twice. This is my fourth visit.
Well, we know that, of course, everybody asks you about Stănescu, and it is very difficult to say very many things about George Stănescu.
No.
Always, but we'd like nevertheless to tell us a few things about him.
But the difficulty isn't in not being able to say much about George Stănescu, it's wanting to say so much that it would take a whole book, and these few minutes are hardly adequate to say all that I feel about him and all the tremendous depth of my admiration and my love for him.
We'd like you to tell us only what did Stănescu mean to you?
Well, that's what I was trying to say. Stănescu meant so much to me. First of all, musically, he was an inspiration. Violinistically, he was quite remarkable. He inspired me. That is perhaps the most basic thing I can say. And that not only musically, but humanly as well. He was one of the most generous and kindest people. He was one of the most noble people I knew. And I don't ever hope I shall meet anyone who is any greater in that way than Stănescu. I could go into many details of my lessons and the music I studied with him. Suffice it to say that whatever I feel I can do today as a musician, I owe the greater part of that to Stănescu.
Thank you very much for sharing us these moving impressions about George Stănescu. Now coming back to your visit to Romania, what does this new visit to Romania mean to you?
A renewal of my association with the public of Romania, with its composers, its artists, a renewal which has been too long delayed. I should have come back earlier. In fact, it's difficult for me to be everywhere I'd like to be at the same time, but I do feel I want to come back more and more to this beautiful country and to give the people the some of the music I can in return for a great deal which they can give me in terms of their love of their country's nature, their love of beautiful things, and their ability in music. I was very impressed with the level of teaching at the conservatory.
Well, we know that you have visited the conservatoire in Bucharest. We'd like you to share a few impressions about this visit, and of course, if you can tell us anything about the musical life of our country.
Well, all I can say from the few days I've been here is that there seems to be a very great musical activity, composing, playing, everything in the under the how shall I say, still the inspiration of Stănescu. The whole country is living up, or trying to live up to a level, a standard, trying to emulate a great man whom it loves and respects. And I don't think there's anything more inspiring than to see a country rally around a worthy hero. And when that hero is a musician, it is all the more wonderful. And from what I can see, there's a tremendous accent on the teaching of music, even in the smaller towns, in the schools. New conservatories, new schools, new halls are being built, and from what I heard, the violinists I heard, the teaching I've seen, the choirs I've heard, are all bespeak a very serious and enormously intensive approach to music.
Well, and how did you find your meeting with the Romanian audience this time?
Again, the audience is, it was my first visit to Timișoara, and I found already in Timișoara a wonderful audience. In fact, altogether a remarkable quality in that small city of a sweet city with a very high level of musical activity.
Thank you very much for this interview, and we cannot but express the hope that we shall have the privilege to applaud you once again in Romania.
Thank you so much. That struck me. In the absence of everything else, the culture of music can replace so many things, and it is wonderful when it does.
Well, and now to end, we would like you to tell us, how did you find Romania 10 years later?
It's what I can say, that it seems to me somehow it's like coming into a landscape after a long winter and seeing a few early spring crocus, a few flowers that promise a blossoming. I only hope that the blossoming will continue and that there will be no falling back into the long winter. When I was here last time, I felt the winter was heavy. Now I feel the promise of spring.
Let us say 10 to 20 persons who help me.
And now we have the pleasure to speak to another guest, the well-known British musician, Mr. Robert Masters. Well, Mr. Masters, as far as I know, this is the first time you come to Romania.
That's right, yes.
And what can you tell us about this tour to our country together with the Menuhin Festival Orchestra?
Well, we've been very excited by our 3 days in Romania. It is the end of a tour which started at the beginning of the month. We set off on the 1st of March, and I must say it says a lot for your country that even when we should be tired at the end of this tour, you have all stimulated us so much that we feel almost refreshed.
Well, and what can you tell us about the reception made by the Romanian audience to you, both in Timișoara and in Bucharest?
Well, this was one of the first things that stirred us enormously, because we felt that the reception was so warm and so generous and full-blooded too.
Oh, I see. Well, now I'd like to know if during these few days you spent in Romania you had the opportunity to know anything about Romanian musical life.
Yes, in as far as I was fortunate enough to pay a visit to the Conservatoire of Music in Bucharest here, and we were given in a very short space of time a very comprehensive picture of the work that goes on in the conservatorium. And we heard some very fine playing from a chamber orchestra with an excellent oboist. We heard 2 solo violinists who played extremely well. We heard some beautiful singing from the choir, and that reminds me to interrupt here. In Timișoara, on Sunday, I went into the cathedral there and listened to part of the service, and there was there too some most beautiful singing from the choir. Mm-hmm. Then in the conservatorium we heard the orchestra with a piano soloist, and the general impression altogether was one of serious hard work and a great deal of talent.
Well, and now to end our short interview, I'd like you to share a few general impressions about our country.
That would be difficult for me to say honestly, because apart from Timișoara, we spent the night in the train, and then we've just been shortly in Bucharest, in the city itself. But I have seen enough to make me want to come and explore the country much more, to come and pay a visit on holiday when I'm not working, and to really enjoy the beauties of the countryside here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masters, for this interview, and we cannot but express the hope in our turn that we shall have the pleasure to applaud you once again in our country.
Thank you so much.